So let's go on. Thank you to stay. I hope that sleepy people will be awakened during this second part. So I'll start with the demo that didn't work previously. It didn't work because I launched it before the talk, and there is in the demo application there is a kind of polling on Twitter, and Twitter has a kind of rate limit in the request you can do by hour and consume all this rate limit. That's why I added this exception. So before going in the technical part of Agorava, I think it's a good thing to show what we can do with the framework. So it's not a very fancy application, it's a demo application to show you how we can connect to multiple social networks, get a timeline, and send update on those social networks. This demo application is available online. We are using the CloudBees services to build our project, and we are using their server they provide us to deploy our application. You can also get it from GitHub on GitHub/Agorava. You have the socializer application that can be launched directly from the command line. It's in the README file, and on the command line it's working with the JT server. So it's directly from Maven. You launch an embedded JT and you have the application running. So it's based on CDI, but as I said before, you can run it in a light server. So in this demo application, we have the three main modules of Agorava that are here, and we can ask for a connection to one of these modules. For instance, if we ask for a Twitter connection, I hope I won't have a error this time. So I click on Twitter and I have a pop-up that shows up with the login page on Twitter. So I have to log here because it doesn't remember my Twitter doesn't remember my identity on this browser since I use the new one. It's speaking French, sorry. So I give authorization to the application. And if I gave the right login and password, okay, it should come back to the socializer application with my timeline here. See? Okay. So what happened when I click on the connect button on Twitter? It sent the callback URL that was sent by the socializer application, and this callback URL used the verifier code that was issued at the end of the auth dance, and closed the pop-up window and asked for access token. Now access token is used to request my timeline on Twitter. I can use Twitter again to connect to another account. For instance, oh, that's magic. I'm connected. So I disconnect myself. And this time I'm logged with the Agorava Proj Twitter account. That's the account you would like to follow if you want to keep posted on Agorava. You can also follow me if you want. Okay. Okay. So now I should have Okay. I should have, you see here, two choices about social network. So here I'm connected as Agorava project account, and I can switch back to my own account. It's a bit slow. It's an Ajax effect. Okay, and let's switch to my Twitter account. I should see all the... I have tabs to see my favorite tweet and the mention also, I think, yes. So I have some good luck about the talk here. Now I can try to connect to another service, and after that, I think the demonstration will be done. So I use the Facebook connection, and you saw it will the pop-up show up and close as soon as it shows up, because I already gave permission to use my account to socializer, so it didn't ask for a connection. Okay, so here I have my Facebook timeline. Okay, I can switch back to my Twitter account. It's a bit slow network here. Okay, and I can send a tweet. Put the right hashtag. Okay, it's not fancy. There is no message saying that everything was done right. Let's see if we have something on Twitter. Well. Perhaps we have to wait a bit more. Okay. Too bad. I made some change in the application yesterday for the talk, and maybe I broke something, but I swear it worked. Okay, so closing Safari, go back to the application. So the goal of Agorava is not building some kind of cheap TweetDeck solution or cheap Hootsuite solution. The idea is to use the powerful tools that we've got in Java to deal with all the data you can gain on the social media. So you can go on BI solution, on big data solution, and mashup solution to cross data between Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. And that's the main purpose of the framework. Because if we want to have to build a client with Agorava, it's nonsense, because there are a lot of them outside, and it's not the purpose of the project. But you see that we can build one of those. So we saw the big picture of the architecture before the pause. Now we are going a bit deeper. We have the most important class in the API here. In the center of Agorava is the auth service that is the class that manage all the exchange with the social media. So that's a kind of central service that send a request, ask for a request signature, get response back, transform response JSON payload in object, and so on. Other important class are the Do you see from there? I can have a zoom. No, I can. Another important class is the social media API hub. That is the main entry point of the configuration and of the manipulation of the given social media module. So it's something that is shared across the application. Zoom out. Other important class is the host provider that you can see on the upper side. That will manage all the basic host operation. So it doesn't deal with REST operation, but only in signing operation and token operation. So send back the URL to ask request token and so on. And finally, we'll go deeper after that. The last important class is the one on the right. It's the host session. So there is one host session object that is created for each connection, and it contains user-specific information like access token, and brings some cache around the user identity, user profile in the framework. Here are the main classes. I forgot about this slide. So I talk about host provider, host service, social media API hub. The host app settings contains the configuration of the host application you have to use to use the module. So it's here that you put the key of the application you define on Facebook or Twitter. And that's all. The abstract social media API is the base class that will be used for each family of API on a given service. I will go in further detail later, but let's take, for instance, Facebook. You've got a bunch of different API in Facebook. You've got API to manage your timeline. You have API to manage your friends. You have API to manage all around talk, for instance, instant messaging. And all these family have to be organized in different classes, objects. So the abstract social media API is the base object that provide the main service to create a new family of API for a given social media. So let's start. How do we use those classes? So I repeat today, all the mechanism works with CDI, but we are working to be able to use them outside CDI with Java IC, and after that in Goose and perhaps another IOC framework. So the host app settings will contain all information to start the famous host dance that we saw before. So we will put in this object the private key of the application and the public key also, all the callback URL. In auth 2, I didn't talk about that, but you can define some kind of scope to give a fine-grained rights on your application. For instance, on Facebook, you can you can ask that your application can access your friends or not, things like that. And it will contain the name of the social media that it is related to, because we will, in an application, we can have many host app settings. We have to be sure on what social media it is related. because it doesn't have any sense to use Twitter app settings on Facebook, for instance. So, as I said, all the auth support is mainly done through auth provider. Auth provider use today the JavaScript framework, and it uses it to deal with all the low-level basic auth operation around token, around generating base request object, and about signing auth request. So we will use the auth provider, for instance, to get the URL to start the connection, to start the dance, get the access token, and create auth signature. So as I said at the beginning, all the calls that will be made to the social media will be issued by the auth service class. So the difference with auth provider is that auth service will deal with REST call and will deal with answer. So it will use auth provider to manage all auth related things like signature, but it will be the object that will manage all the auth life cycle. There is some French in this slide, sorry. Lack of translation. So as I said, the abstract social media API is the root of each family of API for a given social media module. There is an example in the image there. So we have children class from the abstract social media API. We have a Twitter-based service, LinkedIn-based service, and Facebook-based service. And we see under Twitter we have two implementation of the base service. So one is for all the family around a Twitter user call. So it's there that we can get the profile of the user. It's there that you can get all the information about suggestion category. You know when you are on Twitter, on the side, the service makes you suggestion about topics. It's related to your user profile. And also you've got information about your rate limit status. That's the famous rate I exploded before, and the reason why my demo didn't work in the first place. In the example, you have another class that implements the Twitter-based service. It's all the API around timeline management. So you have a bunch of property about your mention, your favorite, your home timeline, the public timeline, all the tweets that was retweeted by you, etc., etc. So if you go to the Twitter developer portal, you will see that all this API is organized by family. So the idea is to provide a way to be close as possible to this way of organized API. So we try to have a solution to put this family and have the same organization as the social network that we try to implement API. So that's the way where we are using those family. That's the reason we are using family. If you take Twitter, if you consider Twitter or Facebook, it's more on Facebook. You have a lot of family, more than 10 families, and perhaps in some service 20 family. So we need something we need some kind of concept to gather all this family and have something that provide a kind of entry point to the API. That's the role of the social media API hub. So the API hub, it is an object where you can put all the API families for a given service. It will also be the solution to provide generic functionalities across different social media. For instance, right now in Agorava, it's in the social media API hub that we can get information about user, and we have a way to provide a standard across the user. So the social media API hub use the underlying family to provide user without knowing what is the underlying social media. We will see an example later. And it's also the entry point of social media configuration. It's this class that I will use today to put my configuration, saying, okay, I have an application defined on Twitter, so I give you the configuration of this application with the public key, secret key, callback URL, and so on. It's the entry point where I put the configuration. We'll see how we do it right now in CDI. It will be different in Java EC, that's for sure. So in the auth session, another interesting point. So all the other objects, all the other components we saw before, try to see. So its auth configuration is shared across the application. Auth provider is shared across the application. There is one auth provider for each social service. But if you take Socializer, for instance, there are 3 social service defined, so there are 3 different auth provider defined. The same for the auth configuration, 3 different auth configuration defined. But it's shared among all the users. Auth service also is declined by different type of social media activated. So in Socializer, there are only 3 among the application. The same for all the social media API and the social media API hub. But when we talk about session, there is one session for a given. There is one session for a given user for a given social media. So it's not the same scope. And we will see that we can also define more than one session for a given social media for a user. As we saw in Socializer, I was able to have 2 connections to Twitter, one on my account, the other on the Agorava project account. So I can use more than one session for a given social media by user. In the session, I will store all the tokens. The request token that is used in the auth dance, the access token I get at the end of the auth dance. I will use this session to have some kind of cache for my user profile, and I will store in the auth session the information about the service it is related to. So this session is related to Twitter, this session is related to Facebook, and so on. So, in Agorava, today, how do we do to bootstrap a configuration? So there will be a lot of CDI stuff in the following code. I hope everyone is comfortable with it. If you have questions, don't hesitate. So to define, to start to bootstrap a Twitter configuration with Agorava, I use what is called in CDI a producer. So the producers you see before the declaration of the method is the fact that this method will send an object that will become a CDI bin. I have on the top a qualifier that will mark this social media API hub as a Twitter-related social media API hub. Under that, I have a scope. So this API hub is defined for all the application. So my media API hub I'm created is for the whole application. Under that, I have a special annotation. If we have time, I will go further in that, but it's an annotation that is used by a CDI extension that does some kind of magic. And when I write this declaration, I have 4 bins that are created thanks to this extension. We will see how it will work if we have time. So when I write that, I have 4 bins that are created. The first bin, it's the social media API hub that I am declaring here. And it's in application scope, so it's for all the application. Second one, it's the hot service bin that will have the same qualifier at Twitter, and it's also be in the application scope. The third bin will be a hot session bin. It will also bear the at Twitter qualifier, and this time it will be in session scope, so it will be created for each session. And the last one is the hot provider that will be in application scope and will bear the at Twitter qualifier. The hot application annotation, you see in the third annotation, can have some parameters. By default, when you put no parameters in it, the mechanism that generates all those bins read the configuration in the agorava.properties file that is in the class path of the application. You can change this behavior. You can add in the hot application the parameters. If I show you an example here, if I take in Socializer the definition of the different service, you see here I have a bin that produces the Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook API hub, and you see here that we are using a kind of a builder for reading configuration. So it's here, it's a builder that will read the configuration in a property file. And we say that in a property file, information for Twitter will be in a Twitter, will be start with a Twitter key, here with a LinkedIn key, and here with a Facebook key. We could have add the name of the properties file. We didn't do it because it will use the default name, which is agorava.properties. The file is normally here. And if you look here, you have the configuration. So twitter.api key, twitter.api secret, and so on. So this file is used to produce the configuration. We will see how it is done later if we have time to see that. If we look at another example of configuration, for instance, in Twitter module, in a test, we have, yes. Here we have another example of this bootstrapping. So in the auth application, we don't use the property file builder for the configuration. We put directly the value in the annotation. So here the API key, the API secret, and we could have add the callback. As it is a test, it's not important because we don't need to perform the auth dance. We are cheating in the test. Okay. Yeah. So how do we create a new Agorava module? So in Agorava 1.5, to do that, you have to create a qualifier, so a CDI qualifier today, with the @service related meta annotation. We will see an example of module after that. You will have to create a low-level API class containing all the basic endpoints for the new social service. It's the way that JavaScript works today, and I think we will keep it when we will switch on JAX-RS 2. You will have to extend the abstract social media API to create the root class for all the families, the API families for your social service. And you have to create your social media API hub to gather the families and implement the generic services. After that, the minimum you have to do is to create the service classes to deal with user profile in a new service, because the only, today, right now, the only generic task that is mandatory and performed by the framework is around profile. So we provide a way to have the same interface for all profile across social media. You have question? That's crystal clear. So let's talk about technology used in Agorava. We will see. We will go after that in the code of a module and a socializer to understand how it is done. First piece of software we use in Agorava is the JSON framework. So we deal a lot with JSON in Agorava in our modules. So we use this framework to do the binding between the JSON payload and the POJO we use for the API. So JSON is the solution. So it provides a kind of JXB solution for JSON. So JXB for XML, here it's for JSON. It works with JXB annotation, by the way. Yeah, you can use them, or you can use specific annotation if you need. It also provides more functionality like JSON parsing tools. And there is also an elegant solution that we use today to separate the POJO from the binding configuration that is called the mixin. We'll see an example just after that. To be more precise on JSON and on tools to use JSON, we would like to use the GSR around JSON, the JSON PGSR. Unfortunately, for the moment, they only are on a JSON P roadmap. So they are only in the processing of JSON. They are not in binding. There is no JSON B GSR. Today we need to have a solution for binding JSON to POJO and convert POJO to JSON from binding. So we can't today use JSR for that. So we use a JSON that could become a reference implementation if one day JSON-B specification will arise. JSON is very used among JSRS implementation. They use it to do the conversion between JSON and an object. So I know that REST-easy and Jersey use it. I think that CXF use it also. So an example of mixin. It's nice and could give ID for other framework that use annotation binding, like GPA. It would be nice. So on the left, I have a POJO. It's standard Java classes. So it's a class that comes from Twitter module. So it's a definition of a trend in Twitter. So we have the name of the trade and the query linked to the trade. We have the constructor and the getter for name and query. I don't have any mapping on that. But beside the class, I have another classes that is abstract and define a mixin on the class. So I only have to annotate, here I annotated the constructor of the mixin with an add.json creator, which is a Jackson annotation. And I put the annotation JSON property before name and query with the name I want them to have in JSON payload. So it's the same, but I could change them. And that's all. So I have on one side my POJO, on the other side the definition of the mapping. I don't have to mix both of them. It could be useful if one day we decided to use another solution than JSON to do the mapping. The last thing you need to have to use the mixin is to define a module to make the association between the class and the mixin linked to the class. For instance, here we define a Twitter module that extends the Jackson simple module. We only have to declare a constructor with the name of the module, and we create the association between POJO and their mixin. For instance, the last line we associate trend to a trend mixin to tells the system that we will use the trend mixin annotation to do the mapping on the trend object. After that, we have to register the module in the object mapper class, which is the main solution, the main entry point on the Jackson framework to do marshalling and unmarshalling, serialize and deserialize object from and to JSON. So now we have a bit of focus on CDI and how it is used in Agorava, CDI implementation for the moment. So as you probably know, CDI is a mix, in fact, of two specifications. So the main specification is the JSR 299, the original specification, and there is on top of that the JSR 330, the at-inject JSR. So most of the code we will see here is JSR 330 compliant. So it's nearly compatible with a framework like Spring or Goose. The non-compliant part is all the part that deal with scope, because scope are not part of the at-inject JSR. But all the inject, all the qualifier, all the programmatic injection and so on that we will see also work in the JSR 330 framework. So we talk about Jackson. That's good news. Simple dependency injection. I think there is nothing to learn here. I define a JSON mapper Jackson class that implement JSON mapper interface, and I can inject the service in another class using the interface, of course, and not the implementation class. We also have qualified injection. There is something specific that we use in Agorava, is the fact that the core of Agorava doesn't know the module that it will use at runtime. Today we have 3 official modules, 3 other modules in the work. We cannot add in the binaries of the core framework information about existing modules. So the core framework is built. We will see how to discover module available and module configured at the beginning of the application. To be able to discover them, we have to add information on the qualifier used in the module. For instance, you have the definition of the Twitter qualifier. So all the meta annotation you see are standard. The @qualifier, the @target, the @retention, @documented. I won't do a lecture on annotation here. What is a bit specific is the @service related annotation, meta annotation. So when we put the @service related meta annotation, it is to say that this qualifier will be used to define a specific social media service. So when I want to inject the old service related to Twitter, I will use the @inject @Twitter, the old services. We also use producer mechanism. So, for instance, again in the Jackson usage in Agorava, some of the API, especially in Facebook, needs to use directly the low-level object mapper of Jackson. So we use the @producers annotation to expose the object mapper as a bin. So you see Jackson is not CDI framework, doesn't use CDI, but putting the @producers on this field generate a CDI bin that can be injected later in another bin. So we have that inject object mapper in the Graph API AMP of Facebook service. We use a lot of programmatic injection in Agorava. It's important because people that will have to develop a module today will have to use those tricks. So the programmatic injection in CDI is a way to avoid injecting definitive interface or class in the bin. It injects an instance of the bin, a kind of factory of the bin that allows to resolve the bin we want to use at runtime. For instance, here we'll inject an instance of auth provider. We will inject any all provider. That will say we will inject all provider without regarding their qualifier. In this example, we have this injection. We have a qualifier that is stored in the class, and during the execution of the code in the runtime, we want to get a specific provider. So we can change the qualifier, for instance, and use the instance injected and ask this instance to select a specific hot provider with the given qualifier. So you can change the qualifier and get the provider regarding this qualifier. Another use of programmatic injection that we use for mixin. If you remember, mixin are the solution in Jackson that allow us to have Pojo on one side and configuration on the other side. So we use it for most of our module. So we define for each module, so for each social media module, a Jackson module for mixing configuration. So there is a Twitter module, a Facebook module, and so on, and a Service X module, as I wrote here. Each of these Jackson modules have the qualifier related to the service they are mixing for. In the core framework of Agorava, as we don't know what are the active modules, we inject an instance of the module, and in the post construct of the bin that deal with all the configuration of Jackson, we do a loop on all the instances and register the instances in the object mapper, Jackson object mapper. It's the way to deal with the dynamicity and the fact that we don't know at the beginning what will be the module available. Okay, there are a lot of context trick in not in Agorava directly, but for instance in Socializer. Here we have a first bin, the multi-session manager ample. That is the solution that deals with all the different connections that allows us to have multiple connections to multiple social networks. So this bin is in the session scope of the user. So when a user arrives on the application, an HTTP session is created, and this bin is put in this context. In this bin, we have a kind of mechanism that exposes a specific auth session as the current auth session. If you remember, when I did the demo, I had a radio button to choose the right social media, to activate the right social media. And it's the current social media. So here, I have the solution that show you how this current social media is exposed. So the session that is selected becomes the current session, and it is exposed through the producer you see on the second line. The second part of the code show you a node service bin that is not in session scope, it's in application scope, but we can inject session object in this application scope. Because in CDI you don't inject directly the bin, but you inject proxy of the bin. So you can mix the scope and have a session bin injected in application scope bin. You have the same mechanism in other IOC framework like Spring, but in Spring you have to explicitly said that you use a proxy to do the injection. Here it's done automatically. So that's one reason why it's a bit difficult today to do all the port in Java IC and things like that, because we won't have all these tricks and features in Java IC, so we have to decide what we provide and what we won't provide in Java IC and in other IOC framework for Agorava. Another solution that we use a bit in Agorava is the decorator mechanism, which is a way to do AOP in CDI. For instance, here you have a decorator that will work on a Twitter timeline service bin. So Twitter timeline service is the bin that will gather all the API related to Twitter timeline. So get the timeline, get the public timeline, and so on. What we want to do is to separate the Twitter timeline service from CDI specific things. That's not the best example. Well, there is another one after that. But if we want to add CDI specific mechanism in our service, instead of doing it directly in the service, we add a decorator to put this extra functionality outside the service. So that's an example. Here, we make an interception of the call of the update status method in the Twitter timeline service, and we write something on the console, like in decorator, and we add decorated to the status we send to Twitter. In fact, this mechanism, I think there is an example after in my slide later. This mechanism is used to trigger some kind of event when the timeline is updated. That's the example. That's an event example. After that, I will show you the mix of the event and decorator. So here we use a last functionality in CDI across Agorava. It's the event functionality. This functionality is mainly there to add some decoupling between bins. So without events, you have to make bins aware of each other if you want to trigger behavior in a given bin from action in another. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to do that. So we can use event to have a loose coupling between those both bins and only trigger an event somewhere and listen to an event, not knowing who will launch this event in the other bin. That's the example here. So here we inject an event generator that generates event of type of complete. And you see it's the init access token is the method that is called at the end of the auth dance. And at the end of the auth dance, what do? We ask the social media the final access token with the verifier that was sent back in the final URL, and the request token that we had at the beginning. So we have this access token, we put it in the setter of the session access token, and after that, we trigger an event. So we trigger an event to say, okay, the auth initialization phase is complete. So we get a complete event with the right qualifier, for instance, if it's Twitter, the @Twitter qualifier, and we fire this event. So we launch a new autocomplete to say, okay, there is a new connection to Twitter. So let's say Facebook, because I have Facebook Services Hub under that. And in the hub, I have a listener that is waiting for such an event to initialize the user profile. Okay, the auth dance is over. Now I have information to start sending requests to the service, so I can ask information about the profile. So I have my listener here that listen for autocomplete events that are qualified with @Facebook qualifier. So when such an event is triggered somewhere, like in the upper code, okay, I can start to read information about the user, because I have information to do that, and I can get the user. So here you see, by the way, that in the API hub, we inject all the services through an instance class, and we can get these services through the instance selection to get the profile. Okay. Anybody lost? If you have questions, feel free. A little focus on CDI extension. I will try to be not too slow on that. To show you after that how we use them in Agorava. So CDI extension are a way to create beans or create kind of injection point in a CDI application. We can create them or modify them, and we can cancel the bean creation. In Agorava, we will use extension to dynamically analyze, make a kind of inventory of all the module, the social media module that are there, and gather information about them to be able to use them at runtime. Why do we need extension? If you are not very comfortable with CDI, you have to know that CDI is the strong typed injection solution. So you don't have a way to dynamically create beans at runtime, like you can do in Spring in some way. So once the application is launched, the bean manager is immutable. At the end of the launch, you can't add new beans. You can instantiate new beans, that's for sure, but you can't create new beans. So the extension is here to change the bean manager behavior and add new beans. At the end, extension can become beans also. Where does it happen? It's happen at the beginning of the CDI life cycle. I will do it as fast as possible. So you have a lot of steps before running your application. You see the application running is the one at the right. You have events that you can observe, and you can, there are two colors here. The green one is the event that occurs once, and the blue ones are events that occurs many times regarding the number of bins of injection point and so on. So I have a first step before the bin discovery is launched where I can do something. After that, I can work on all the annotated type that are in the application, so all the type that have annotation on them. After that, I can work on all injection target in the application. After that, I can work on all the bin that are in the process of being integrated in the bin manager. That's the same for the producers. The same for all the method that observes event. After that, I have one step, unique step after the bin discovery, and a final step after the deployment validation. After that, my application is running, and I have a final step at the end of the application that I can use, but it's we don't use it normally. So to create an extension, we'll go very fast on that. You have to implement an interface, and you have to declare it in a specific file. And you have to add some method that observes one of these events. Okay. An example of extension. Extension that will abort bin creation. So you can create an annotation at Vito to put it on the class and say, okay, this class I want this class to become a bin. So the example of this extension. So here we have in the extension method that will observe the process annotated type event. Remember the one that is the first blue one in the lower part on the left. So we will check all the annotated type that were scanned by the CDI engine. And when one of these annotated type has the @Vito annotation, or if it's packaged as the @Vito annotation, we will veto the process annotated type, so it won't become a bin. I will show you now how do we use extension in Agorava. So we have an okay. We have an Agorava extension. So I won't go through all the part, but let's say let's say we check some of the method here. The first one is very simple. We are observing the before discovery event, so it occurs one at the beginning of the CDI life cycle, and we only use it to launch a line in the log about starting Agorava framework initialization to say, okay, the extension is starting. Here we are dealing with the producer and the bin, because we can have bin declared with the configuration and bin declared as the producer. So we do the same for producer and in bin, and we call the internal process API hub to tell, okay, I discover a new hub, so a new service And I keep track of all the service I discovered. I won't go further in that, but I keep, as you can see in the upper part here, I keep collections about qualifiers that are available for the services, the social media services, and the name and so on. So we talk about version 0.5 that was released 1 month ago. There is some patch and working in progress for 0.5.1. We have some big modification for version 1. The first modification is to implement the JSR2 client framework. So we will, today we are using a kind of homemade REST solution. So using HTTP URL connection class and so on through the JavaScript framework. Tomorrow, if everything goes well, we will use this framework that will allow us to be more agile on the using of OAuth solution. So we can have different kind of filters or filters to deal with OAuth and have something add modularity to the solution. Another technology that we are investigating right now is a solution to deal with POJO generation from JSON. That's a big part, in fact, in framework like Agorava. As I said before, social media service can change their API when they want. They are adding things each month, each year, and you have to follow that. If we keep the way we are doing right now, it's a bit difficult because we have to be aware that where the changes are and what we need to add. Sometimes it will be a little part, sometimes it will be a huge part. That's the case of the new version of Twitter API. And so the solution is to have a tool that will use the JSON generated by the social media services to create our POJO with the right JSON annotation. There is a tool that does that, which is called JSON to POJO schema generator, a nice tool. Few months ago, it was mainly based on JSON schema format. The problem is nobody uses the JSON schema. If you work often with XML, you know XSD. So you have some kind of schema for XML, and it's a lot of people use it because it's a kind of way to enforce some rules and have a grammar on the XML. You have the same for JSON, but social media actors don't use this schema because as they change their API very often, they don't want to provide developers something that is kind of contract to be able to change as they want. So we don't have a schema. But JSON to POJO had an evolution a few months ago, and now it can work also with JSON format. I will show you a kind of demo. Not a kind, I will show you a demo. Let's say I have a little project to show you how it works. Here, I have a project called Twitter model. In this project, I don't have source code. I only have in the resource folder a file tweet.json. The content of this file is a tweet. In fact, it's the sample tweet that is given by Twitter in the API documentation. So I took this tweet and I passed its content in the file. You see that the tweet structure is a bit rich. There are a lot of things in that. There are collection of data entries. So in entries, I've got URL, I've got hashtags, and so on. There are information about the user that sent the tweet, and so on. So if I start from this tweet and I say, okay, I want to create all the classes corresponding to this JSON, I will have, I don't know, but 4 or 5 classes. Depending on what we have a tweet, we have the user, we have the entities with the URLs, and so on. Yeah, some of them. So I can start by doing it, or I can use a tool like JSON to schema generator. So here, in my Maven file, in my pom.xml, I have only the Maven plugin to make this generation. I can launch. Oops. Okay, I can launch the plugin. I hope it will work. Okay, and we'll see that in the log we see that it generates 4 classes. I cannot see them in IntelliJ because it excluded the folder, but okay, I can. Now we will be able to see them. So the generated classes are here. Okay, so it generated 4 classes. So we have tweet classes with all the properties. I have the user classes with all the corresponding name in JSON, and I have the entities URL classes. So with no effort, I have generated most of my Pojo from JSON. So we are in the process of testing this tool to see if we can use it directly without modification or as a base to create the model of our module, but it could be a good solution to keep the pace of the whole social media API change that occurs very frequently. Okay. And last thing that we will make evolve in coming version 1 is to have all the polymorphic solution. Today in the in Agorava we only have user profile services across social media. That's the only generic polymorphic service that we provide. So we have the social media for Twitter, for Facebook, for LinkedIn, and so on. And in all those social media API hub, the developer has to tell to give the solution to find the user profile and send a standard user profile to build it with the different API it has. Now that we have a nice core, we can start to bring that to other services. So the idea is to have a kind of interface, for instance, to say, okay, I define the as update interface. To add the as update implementation to one of the social media that provide the way to update, to send an update to the social media. The same for the as timeline. Okay, so I have some method to implement. And when I declare the Facebook service hub, I will say that the Facebook service implement the as update and as timeline. And I will use all the all the API family related to Facebook to deal with the timeline, the update, and provide polymorphic service, generic service to send an update or to read timeline. We have an example at the bottom. So in this example, I inject all the as update service, and I can use a loop to send the message in all those services without knowing what services it is related to. All I know is that this service supports the as update, and I can call a method that will update the social media service. So that's something we start to discuss to have a nice API around that on the mailing list. By the way, I'm talking about people working on Agorava. We are a small team right now, about 10 people. Most of them working on different modules, and other contributors are welcome to join us on the project. If you have questions. Everything was clear? Or you all fell asleep? 3 hours is quite long, I understand. Okay, so if you want to keep on Agorava and other project we talk about, here are the link. So you can have all the information about Agorava on agorava.org. The project is hosted on GitHub, so you can go on GitHub. There are all the links on the website, and you can fork and work with the project. The same for Daily Core, social link, and you also have all the link for the different JSR on project that Werner talked to you about. We will put the slide on a slide share this afternoon, so if you want to check those links, you'll be able to do it. Okay. No question? So thanks everyone, and perhaps see you in the project and in the social sphere soon.